Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to the 8th edition of Data Center India 2021. We have a fantastic speakers in the inaugural session. I welcome Shri Dr. Madam Dr. Neeta Verma, Director General NIC. Madam, welcome to the 8th edition of Data Center India 2021. Madam, thank you very much for taking out time from your busy schedule to join us. It really shows that how serious you are with the DC business happening in India. We also have Sri G. Narendranath Ji, Joint Secretary, National Security Council Secretariat. Sir, thank you very much joining us from your busy schedule as well. I know a lot of things are happening at your ministry as well, which is, I can read every day what's happening in the ministry.
Thank you. Good morning.
Then we have Sri Harnath Babu, who's going to moderate this session. Then we have Sunil and Sumit and Golakji from the Ministry of Passport and Sumit from Gaya Smart City. And we also have Sunil from the DC business. So before I do to move into the next, I request Sri Rajat Mukherjee, the Director General, Broadband India Forum, to welcome the panelists and give the opening remarks. Rajatji is an industry veteran with more than 25 years of experience in the IC sector in the areas of strategy, branding, communications, and corporate affairs. He has earlier served in the key position with Birla AT&T and ZT India, most prominently as Chief Affairs Officers of Idea Cellular for 16 years. Rajatji, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sashi. You omitted to mention that I am now the Director General at the Broadband
I started
India
with
Forum.
that, sir. I started with that.
Thank you so much, Sashi. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, and my respected members on the desk, along with me, our Chief Guest and Guest of Honor, Dr. Neeta Verma, Director General of the National Informatics Center, Sri Narendranath Ji with the National Security Council Secretariat, and colleagues and friends from the industry. This is a real privilege to be able to share a few comments on this theme, which I think is extremely pertinent, the data center infrastructure for transforming the digital economy. Thank you very much, Sashi, and thank you, Bharat Exhibition. The data center ecosystem in India has grown humongously over the last 1 or 2 years during the period of pandemic, when the digital networks kept the wheels of commerce and trade spinning smoothly. And a data center is central to any enterprise's IT operation. It is a repository for the majority of business critical systems, where most business data is stored, processed, and disseminated to end users. The phenomenal digital usage growth that has occurred worldwide has resulted in a similar proliferation of data centers around the world. And it was projected that by the end of this year, 2021, approximately 1,327 exabytes of data would be stored in about 7.2 million data centers around the world. And that is an almost 8-fold increase from 2015. If India is amongst the highest consumers of data in the world, and each and every report from the TRAI confirms this. In fact, the most recent report from the TRAI indicates that we have 14.1 GB per user. Then there is huge potential for the growth and development of the sector in India for us to reach the scale at which countries like Ireland, Singapore, China, and the US are presently operating. One also needs to take into account the economics of data centers and their storage. Data centers, we all know, consume huge amounts of power. In fact, a medium-sized data center can consume power almost to the tune of that consumed by a small city. And it requires vast tracts of land for operations, besides water capacities to cool the equipment. And in order to facilitate this, obviously, it is imperative that the infrastructure conditions with regard to availability of power land, and water are addressed for the viability of setting up data centers in the country on a high priority basis. At the heart of Digital India, data center services are expected to play an important role in the transformation of information into business opportunities. There is a need to build indigenous homegrown data centers and to improve the efficiency and security of the existing data centers. Today, most of the data centers in India are located in Tier 1 cities, Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta, and Chennai, where the cost of land is higher, and plus local earth stations, which are the hubs of fiber, are connecting to these primary towns. This is a situation which needs to change. But today's data centers are integrated and cloud-enabled, and hence their physical location and connectivity offers this opportunity to relocate. The challenges being faced in this context, like the architecture of the buildings, the technology, and the efficiency of operations, are some of the subjects that need to be discussed today and debated to evolve the way forward. Let's just talk about the increase of data in understandable terms. We are all very fond of music. There is an international music channel called Spotify. It reports having something like 35 million songs on their platform. If an average 4-minute song in 320 kbps stereo takes up almost 20 MB of space, and Spotify stores 70,000 TB, that's a lot of TB. What is more interesting is that artists are producing more songs every minute, with 40,000 new songs being uploaded to Spotify every day. Let's move from music to the video. The visual medium, a 10-minute 4K video is about 3.5 GB, and about 400,000 hours of video are uploaded on the YouTube every day. As newer technologies emerge, all this intelligence and data which is gathered and stored on servers in terabytes, petabytes, and exabytes is going to only grow larger and larger, needing data centers to be able to store them. So with this growing trend of video and audiovisual content consumption across India, and especially in the rural areas, is also growing. And contrary to popular belief, estimates show that 65% of online video consumption in India comes from the rural market, which has only 40% internet connectivity. So you can imagine what's going to happen when the internet connectivity grows and expands. Therefore, the requirement of storage and transmission of this immense traffic growth necessitates the development of data centers to a huge extent. And we need to be well poised to accommodate this explosion of video traffic alongside other social media services which are imminent in the future. Connecting these data centers is another area of the infrastructure that shows promise. As I was saying earlier, traditionally, these centers are connected on fiber links around the world. With the development of technology, we now have an opportunity to link them via satellite as well. In fact, SpaceX and Microsoft have recently announced a joint partnership in this field. And here, the hero in this piece is LEO, or Low Earth Station Orbit Satellite. Ladies and gentlemen, there is an urgent need for a robust and secure digital infrastructure as well, which can deliver reliable and cost-effective solutions to the business to drive the digital transformation initiatives taken by the government of India. And an area of great relevance, which needs to be focused on, is that of data flows, data protection, data localization, and data sovereignty. Shri Narendra Nath Ji, I'm sure, is going to cover some of these topics in his talk, but it is critical to understand that the innovation boom on the internet today can be attributed to this freedom that the internet has granted us by breaking down global barriers. And data sharing across continents happens today in the blink of an eye, and storing and processing data using cloud-based technology has proved cost-effective and permitted small businesses to compete on an equal footing with big corporations. The economic impact of free data flows within borders as well as beyond it are captured through several studies which highlight its significance, and I don't need to necessarily elaborate on that. Today, with the freedom and innovation we enjoy in data protection, governments and corporations have to contend with data breaches, cybersecurity, and potential data misuse. This leads to the need for an appropriate structure and guidelines around data protection and security while promoting an environment for fostering innovation along with the development and progress of data centers. Data localization, with the obligation for all companies that collect, process, or store Indian citizen data to store this data in India, is a good direction to take. But there are some challenges and it needs to be examined. In a world where technology is presently erasing borders, it is indeed ironical that we are trying to restrict the use of the internet by mandating storage within the borders. But I think this is going to be one of the points for discussion. I wish each of the participants every success for a positive conversation that will enhance the data center infrastructure and thereby transform the booming digital economy. Thank you very much, Shashi. Over to you.
Thank you, Rajatji. Thank you so much for the introduction and welcome speech. Thank you so much sharing the data and other details. Now I request our guest of honor, Madam Dr. Neeta Verma, Director General, National Informatics Center, to address the gathering. Just for a brief note on Madam, although Madam knows, is well known in the industry, no need of introduction, but she has more than 3 decades of industry experience and taking the DG as a DG NIC into the digital transformation agenda of the government through development of digital platforms. Madam, we know the NIC has grown lengthwise and widthwise under your guidance, and we hope that NIC go much more. What's your plan for the coming years? Over to you, Madam.
Thank you. Good morning to all, and thank you for inviting me to this inaugural session of data centers. As you rightly said, it's a topic very close to my heart. Digital transformation today is at the core of strategy of every enterprise, be it public, private, academia, or civil society. Digital technologies have a deep impact across all sectors also, be it agriculture, education, health, transport, infrastructure, physical security, cyber security, to finance and taxes. In fact, today, digital is considered to be a prime driver of economic growth. And it's rightly so, because technology indeed has a huge potential to increase efficiency in operations through automation, support decision-making, improve quality of services. It is also considered to be a big enabler for reaching the unreached in the country. And with mainstreaming of emerging technologies such as AI, ML, computer vision, AR, VR, image and video analytics, conversational AI, these technologies can help in solving some of our fundamental challenges in the country, be it quality education for all, be it universal healthcare, affordable healthcare for all, be it increasing our dependence on climatic conditions as far as agriculture is concerned, increasing the agriculture production. And we all have witnessed during COVID that how technology has kept us connected during these lockdowns. It has enabled us to work from home. It has enabled us to keep learning through virtual classes. It has also enabled us to take care of our health through these telemedicine platforms. Technology has also been used in management of COVID, as you all know, through popular platforms like Arogya Setu, where a contact tracing was used to contain the spread of virus and alerting people much before they actually caught the infection, of their probability or risk to catch the infection, management of RT-PCR test, and then feeding it back for declaration of containment zones or quarantine and so on and so forth. And lastly, we all have seen what an amazing success we have got through this CoWIN platform for vaccination, as we have covered almost all of our eligible population. First dose will be covering very soon. And I'm sure all of you must have interacted with this platform, and you must have realized that how simple it has become to book for your vaccination and get it, and also keep that record. Many places, even now when we go, they ask for that certificate. All that has become so easy because of technology. We've also seen use of data in the management of COVID through these containment zones. A lot of analytics, spatial analytics was applied to declare containment zones, red, green kind of a thing, at a local level, where even a small part of a geography could be declared within a district. A few colonies could be, a few areas could be declared. Quarantine centers were set up basis that information. Drug distribution, particularly in the second part of COVID, when availability of some essential drugs was there, lot of systems were done. The supply of oxygen IT was applied, and all these solutions are being developed basically to make all these essential components to manage any pandemic in an effective manner using the prowess of technology. And with this, not only the appreciation of technology has increased across entire strata, it has also catalyzed the pace of digital transformation within organizations. We have seen, and we've also seen how during COVID, the businesses, especially in the lockdown period, when a lot of business which were not IT enabled, which were or not IT driven, had actually seen a huge disruption. And on the other hand, people who were IT enabled, the prime movers, have really leveraged that situation in terms of further enhancing or expanding their business. And this has caused a lot of concern, and a lot of small and medium enterprises, lot of other industries traditionally who were not so IT driven, a lot of supply chains have to now fastly moving into this because they could see the power or the benefits of digital technologies. Same is the case with the government also. As you know, we've been working with government, central, state for almost 4 decades now, and helping them further their digital transformation agenda by providing them ICT infrastructure, by providing them digital solutions. But so far, mostly our concerns or our efforts were with central government, state government, and district government, district administration. But with this increased awareness and increased pace of digital transformation, there's a lot of demand for digital transformation happening into sub-district areas, into a lot of other government allied organization directories, which are spread all across districts and state governments. And to cater to these people's requirement, we have certain products, like e-office to automate your office, e-hospital, e-prison, e-courts, these all kinds of solutions, and e-reception, e-procurement, e-auction, or e-HRMS. These are the products which every government entity will need to carry out its operation. And we are now moving it to cloud to offer it as a service so that anybody can directly get it and use it as a service without really bothering about the underlying infrastructure provisioning and so on and so forth. Now, if you see, be it video conferencing, be it email messaging, be it e-procurement or work from home, but supporting all these systems is a silent behemoth data center infrastructure who have really demonstrated their power, their resiliency to help service providers scale overnight to keep pace of this exponential growth in usage during this pandemic, be it platforms like Zoom or be it our own telemedicine platforms like eSanjeevani and many other Sushruth and all those platforms. And therefore, data centers are going to play a very, very critical role in our further journey of digital transformation. It has also made a lot of enterprises where enterprise IT used to be in localized data center to be moving to these central data centers for to overcome those uncertain situations like pandemic brings, or to expand their business, to increase its availability, to be able to scale practically on demand. All this you need support from data centers kind of infrastructure. Data centers also, if I look at it, traditionally data centers have this model of co-location models where people could bring their ICT infrastructure. That is how all data centers came in the beginning. But over time, with the advent of cloud technology, which has brought a lot of optimization, cost efficiency, and agility in access to DC resources, be it storage, compute, or network. In fact, this cloud has democratized the access to the ICT resources. And that has also given rise to a lot of innovation. We have seen the tsunami of mobile apps. Today, you think of anything and you search, you will have a mobile app ready for you to serve you. And each one of us are using, you'll all agree, is using 8 to 10 mobile apps every day to take care of our day-to-day needs in our daily lives. So with all this, and as with COVID, its adoption has increased, we are going to see an exponential growth in data center infrastructure in India. In fact, industry has already sensed this need in the country and have already taken a lot of initiatives. People have started building data center parks across India, and they have also started offering these data services even in smaller towns and so on and so forth. With the growth of this public cloud service providers, the traditional data center providers and the leading ICT manufacturers have to actually now have a new challenge. They have to innovate or change their business models. They have to change their service models to attract the customers. And we have also started seeing some such initiatives, though at early stage in this direction, by even these people offering compute and storage in pay-as-use models, so that they can really kind of compete with this cloud model of reducing your capex to a very, very minimum and then transferring into an OPEX kind of a thing, or pay-as-use kind of a thing. And I feel there is a huge opportunity for conventional data centers here now, because a lot of corporate IT infrastructure, which is moving to professional data centers to ensure high availability, to ensure resilience and scalability, they will still have the requirement to have better control or granular control on their infrastructure, which they are using in data centers. And that is where new kind of models, innovative models data center can bring in, where they give them that convenience of cloud, but also give them that assurance of control over their infrastructure or over their applications, and across visibility across all layers. So these new kind of models can be built, and new kind of service could be done, and which is very much in demand today, when a lot of corporate ITs actually and large enterprises are moving on to data centers. As we have witnessed a lot of growth in data centers in the country, because as we move from urban to rural, and lot people come online. Also, we have this Data Protection Act under consideration in Parliament. And once that comes, there will be a lot of requirement for having a lot of data to be stored within our country, which will be another big catalyst to need of data center requirements in the country. For a lot of data has to be within the country. A lot of social media platforms all have to set up their presence within India. So with this, data center as this industry has a lot of potential and is going to grow in a big way next decade or so. But to complement this data center infrastructure, we also need to have data center professionals in place. And I feel that there is still a scarcity of professionals. On the other side, we also have a lot of gap as far as employability is concerned. So I think a focus should be given on skilling people or reskilling your existing workforce on this or the new set of engineers coming from colleges in this domain, so that they can be easily directly deployed to be able. Because as was said in the beginning, that data centers are real a huge resource hungry kind of a setup, which needs a lot of power, a lot of water, and use other fuels, as well as they also quite the operations and management is quite cost intensive, and you need to bring in efficiency there to be continue to be a competitive, and therefore having a good skilled workforce in its operations is very critical to the success of these data center operations. Another dimension which we have all have been seen with this COP26, lot of climate change concerns have been raised. And data centers will definitely come in the scrutiny of this as we go, because as we go more digital, we'll have more data centers, and obviously then they'll become one of the key industries where we will be expected to go green. We will be expected to be as climate friendly as we could. And therefore, now when people who are building data center have to be mindful of these things, that whatever technologies they use, whether it is power or whether it is for cooling or even selection of the place where you will make, because today it is not necessary that I build data center right in the heart of the city. And we have seen during COVID times how remotely we could handle all these operations, and first-hand experience we have. So, and in India, we have a geography which is so interesting. You have places which are so cool, which are places which have very ambient kind of a temperature across the year. So you could always choose regions where you could deploy with much less power, with much less heating, cooling requirements. So selection of the location, selection of the power technologies, be it renewable energy or be it solar energy, or all those green, whatever comes in green. In fact, now certifications of data centers for being green is also prevalent. So that focus should be given, because otherwise you will see again a lot of disruption if you have not really taken care of these, because at some time it will become into a regulation at certain point. And most of this equipment which we put, unlike IT, goes for 10 to 15 to 20 years. So all that has to be paid attention. And I think as responsible citizen, we should really, we should reduce our carbon footprint as much as we can do. In addition to, so while these renewable energy and solar energy, another aspect we have seen, the kind of equipment we use, we could also use a lot of smartness or controllers in these things so that these machines are intelligent enough and they can optimize themselves by themselves. If the machine is not in use, it can be really lowered down to its consumption level and so on and so forth. So that's one aspect one has to keep in mind. Another aspect which is there, a lot of automation has to be introduced. Generally, in data centers, because it's a multi-speciality kind of setup, and where you need people from various skills. So how do you, and they have to always work on 24/7/365. So how do you reduce this manpower needed is that you introduce all these automation practices. And so this is another aspect you need to focus, that how do you bring automation in management of your data centers to really bring the cost at an optimal level. And if this automation can be coupled with AI and ML kind of a thing, it can have a huge impact, because machines will automatically understand your behavior and will behave at an optimal scale. So these are the two trends which we'll see, and as far as data centers are concerned. Another aspect which is always a concern whenever we talk of any ICT infrastructure or any digital solution we talk, is the security. Is an important dimension. And with this pandemic, we have seen that besides providing this multi-layered security, 7 gates, biometric and iris, and all those kind of physical securities, and putting all their things on the perimeter, we also need to today build data centers which will stand this wrath of natural disasters, which will also be able to continue its operations during pandemic, as well as, as we've been saying, that the new set of wars will perhaps not be the way we see wars today. So the new set of wars, the threats which these wars will emanate is, we have to now start thinking of building data centers which are protected from chemical, biological, and radiological kind of warfares, a CBRN as we fondly call it. So we need to now start deliberating in that direction also. At the end, I like to say that as we go more and more digital, data centers will play an ever increasing role in countries' economy. And therefore, I like to compliment the organizers for organizing this conference on data centers and covering its aspects, including connectivity to data centers, which is also a very, very critical component. And I'm sure all of you will really be benefited by the galaxy of experts who are going to deliberate during the day. I wish conference a great success. And thank you again for inviting me here.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much sharing the details of what should be the future DC looks like. I'm sure Sunil Gupta, co-founder and managing partner and CEO Yotta Infrastructure, has taken a note of it, because he is one of the man who is the biggest player now coming up in the industry. Sunil, I hope you have listened to madam carefully and you can implement all those things in your all the new DCs which you are coming out. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. We move to the next speaker. Now I request Sri G. Narendranath Ji, the Joint Secretary, National Security Council Secretariat, to address the gathering. He is an ITS officer and presently is now working as a Joint Secretary with National Security Council Secretariat. Responsibilities for coordination in matters of cyber security activities by different identities of India. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Shashi. We had, and welcome to all the participants, and good morning, very good morning to my co-panelists. We had a excellent context setting there from Mr. Rajat Mukherjee. We had actually covered the complete gamut of the data center business as such, and a very elaborate, exposition that Dr. Neeta Verma had given about the data center business, and especially from the perch that she has as, NIC is a very important, a critical organization for us, and it provides services to all the government departments, and it's been doing an excellent service, for a few decades now. And with a lot of data that's getting generated, they have a very important role to play. And there's a lot of expertise that's been built into the organization handling a government business. So we've had two very excellent expositions on the data center. And I will try to, build on what has already been covered, trying to avoid duplicating what has already been said, and bring in a perspective from where we are on this business, and maybe raise touch some of the points that Mr. Rajat Mukherjee also talked about, and he was expecting me to cover those. So I will not say that I'm answering all the questions, but I'm only assuring you that I'll touch them. I think, for any session, you have to have some preliminary. So one of this is, the amount of data that's getting generated, and both Mr. Rajat Mukherjee and Dr. Neeta Verma talked about. And there's a lot of work that's happening, and you'll get more and more data on board, like digital health records, and we have this, that we want to have digital health records and migration of patient records from one hospital to another, and across the country of, a unique identity for patients. And then that itself you will find that such a lot of data that will be generated, and a requirement for having portability of the data. You will find that itself will fuel a big data center business across the country. Then we have the smart cities projects, which are there, and the IoT deployments that are taking place. There's a lot of data that the IoT infrastructure generates. And that data also, it's not that it's topical and then you use it today and then destroy it tomorrow. There's a lot of historical data analysis that's required for understanding trends and making decisions on that. Maybe atmospheric related data, environmental related data, usage related data that you will find in smart cities when people have started using services that will be used for planning purposes. So you will have all the data that is required to be stored. Then another one that I see is, this small and medium enterprises. There's a challenge for the small and medium enterprises of running their own IT infrastructure. Their core competence is the business that they do. And then they are forced actually to develop competence in running an IT infrastructure. And if we can encourage all of them and they have sufficient trust and there's sufficient amount of confidence that they get that the data that is hosted, their data that's hosted in the data center is secure. And migrating all of these small and medium enterprises into a cloud architecture is one big business driver that will be there. So there, if you look at it, so there are lots of drivers which are there that will drive the data center business. Then, we have this, this is one context that I talk about. One advantage for all of this is that the data center helps you to do a faster rollout. Whenever we plan a new service or you plan a new infrastructure for running your business, the whole concept of building the IT infrastructure itself takes a large part of your mind space. It takes a large part of your resources to plan for it and, acquire the infrastructure and do it. And having a data center really helps you out. And from personal experience, you must have heard of the Trusted Telecom that we talked about, new National Security Directive on Telecommunication, where we have only Trusted Telecom equipment to be going into the networks of the service providers. Now, we started working on creating a portal for that because there's a lot of data that gets collected for analysis and then, coming to a conclusion whether a product is trusted or whether the source is trusted. It really helped us to, to actually look at a data center and then, only concentrate on designing an application instead of worrying about how the data is to be hosted and where the application is to be hosted. The only thing was to find the right data center host for doing that. Here, so it really helped us, in a faster rollout. And then we wanted that with the directive came in December and we wanted June 15th as the target when we wanted the portal to be up and running. And it really did help us to have by April to have a beta version of it running and then, hosting happening in June. So having the data center model really helped us in doing that. And we didn't really get into the, complexity of understanding how many servers are required, what's the power supply that is required, what's the memory that is required, all of that. None of that planning was, none of those constraints were there in our mind. We just looked at what our application is supposed to do. But the experience that we got out of that, I'll share with you here is regarding the security. Now, we were very clear that portal and the data has to be highly secure because some nation states could be interested in that data. And it means that you have to have the ultimate level of security that you should have. And then when we started looking at data centers, we found that there is a gap there. And it's not all data centers are equal. And that all data centers have, equal security measures and equal understanding of the security. Though they are hosting the infrastructure, but how the access is controlled, how the application is, controlled to see that there's complete, because lots of these data centers, they give you the infrastructure, but, the application security and the data security part of it is left to the client who is actually taking service from the data center. So, and I come down to the point. The core competence is in the business that they're doing. The core competence is not in the IT infrastructure. I think the data centers now, some of the data centers have actually provide security as a service, and they really help in designing your application for a zero trust architecture, so that there's multi-layered access controls and zero trust architecture that's going to do that. So now here I come to a point that there's a need for a reference architecture here. Like one of the things that we are doing from our office is when we're looking at the critical information infrastructure in the country and then interacting with different organizations, we found that not all organizations have a complete understanding of, how they should protect the infrastructure, and everybody does what based on the understanding. That's when we realized that it would be very helpful if we could assess the organizations to understand what is a reference architecture, security architecture, and they could look at it and then, and then implement it in the organization. So we have actually sponsored a project now with IIT Bombay and another entity for coming up with a reference architecture, security architecture, so that enterprises could look at that and then design their own infrastructure. And that could be a benchmark for them to do it. I think something like that is required even in the data center business, so that anybody who wants to host, the application and data on this thing, it could be helpful for them to understand how they would architect their application and access controls to see that the data is protected, the applications are protected. So that is one, I think, is an ask that the industry would should be able to adhere to or supply to. Now the other is regarding you talked about data sovereignty and data flows. One thing about data, so these are not absolute terms. It's not that it's like right to life is not an absolute term or something like that. Life is taken through a legislative, through a legal process. So here also data flows also, it's not that all data is equal. So the PDP bill, the draft of that, you would have found that there was a classification of data, and you would find that some data is required to be resident in the country for processing, and some data could be taken out of the country. And that is something that across the world, people would look at it and then see, what is that data which is critical and which is that data that can go out. And we are part of a global economy. We recognize that India is a part of the global digital economy. And these are principles that we also would adhere to. And good that we have now that non-personal data and data as a public good has been recognized, and we have the PDP bill being reworked to incorporate the elements of non-personal data also into that. So when we look at that, so you will find that there will be requirement that for some, that there's an element of anybody who hosts an application or data onto the cloud, he would like to have a reasonable assurance that the data is protected from, going out into hands that are not, or if there are some restrictions on where the data should be hosted, those restrictions are adhered to. So I think what the industry would look to, or any customer would look to, is that the transparency part of it, for him to understand that where is the data hosted and how do I monitor where the data was hosted. So I think there's a case for solutions so that the customer is able to monitor how his data is being handled. Even if, for example, it goes into a disaster recovery site, where the disaster recovery site, if it's hosted in multiple locations, what are those multiple locations where the data is hosted? That element of transparency is something that many organizations will look at. And if they don't have confidence in that, you will find that they will try to host data in captive data centers within their own organizations, especially with the sensitive data. So this is another area, I think, where you would find that work is required to be done. And recognizing that, we have been working with IISc Bangalore, and we have sponsored some R&D projects with them for, working on, the IISc Bangalore has come up with IUDX, Indian Urban Data Exchange for the smart cities. So building on that, we are also looking at aspects of consent management and multi-party computing and, data protection frameworks and all of those as part of coming up with solutions which will actually facilitate customers who are hosting the data and applications on cloud to have some element of confidence in how their data is handled. And the way the data is handled is, complying to certain conditions that they put on that data. So that is another area that I think work is required to be done. You will find that India generates a lot of data. I mean, that's one thing. The world across the world, you will find, for example, the amount of health data that India will generate. It's a good source for doing a lot of research. There's a lot of data that comes out of agricultural operations. You'll find there's a lot of data, and AI use cases could be developed on that. So developing a good framework for, how do I share the data? So because the data ownership, definition of data ownership, and facilitating the sharing of data, anonymizing of data. So these are all other concepts that would also facilitate, if you have a framework in place, that will facilitate the growth of the data center business. So these are other areas, and the PDB bill in the reworked version, along with the non-personal data, should be addressing all of these issues, which should help in using data as a public good and facilitating enterprises, startups to have access to data for developing AI use cases. That is another area that we find would be useful. The country has recognized the importance of data. I mean, if you see that 2016 was the year when we had the first data center policy that had come about. Telangana government had come up with that in 2016. And you find now UP, Haryana, they have also come up with draft bills, and they're working on that. In respective state governments have gone. METI has also had come about a year and a half back with a draft bill. So a draft document for the policy. I think it's good that all the state governments have recognized that this is a very important part of the economy, and then they've started working on that. And they're looking at incentives, both in terms of working on creating data center parks. One of the things that Dr. Verma had talked about and Mr. Rajat Mukherjee had talked about was the power, the water, and connectivity, which are very important components of data center business. And maybe the data center parks that they talk about would really help in this aspect in providing, alternate sources of power, because power could be, you could have parallel power supplies, in the sense that you have a normal grid and you have an alternate grid for data centers, which would have a higher level of reliability. Because if you want to protect the data centers from mandated or statutory cuts that happen, when there is a shortage, then definitely I think you'll have to have alternate grids that has to be dealt. Maybe that is one part when you have a data park that would help in having that alternate sources of supply, and also help in building connectivity infrastructure, which is there. India is well connected with submarine cables. That way it's very good. But to ensure that your data centers are not concentrated only in the coastal cities like Chennai or Kochi or Mumbai, and we use other places also for hosting data centers, it's important that the reliability of the connectivity that exists at the coastal areas is extended right to the interiors of the country. And this data center parks could be a good mechanism to have connectivity built to those areas and help people to build the data centers there. So that is one. And I think other things the policy should take care of in terms of power, tariffs for power, helping people to use renewable energy, and having incentives for using renewable energy, having captive power plants. One final point that I would like to bring here is regarding the opportunity for the hardware industry in the country. At a particular point of time, a few decades back, we had a vibrant hardware industry. We used to have computers manufactured in the country, and that actually fizzled out. But now with the data centers requiring a lot of hardware, there's an incentive. It would be good to actually look at that aspect of it, and the Atmanirbhar scheme of things to foster an Indian hardware industry so that Indian servers and get into these data centers. So this is one, and I think METI is really working on that for fostering that. And we have CDAC working on coming up with server for Indian data centers. So that is a good initiative, and that should, if that sees the light of the day, it should really help us in having a good hardware industry and manufacturing industry developing in the country. So with these comments, finally, we have there are certain initiatives that we are taking, and they're not specific to data centers, but specific to protecting infrastructure in the country. And data centers would be very critical infrastructure. And Madam has mentioned that about how critical it is, and then she talked about protecting them from natural disasters and warfare and things like that. we have actually funded a project for a national malware repository, and that's already up and running. And recently, we have sent out DO letters to all the IITs and triple ITs for getting access to the National Malware Repository, both for submitting malware samples to that and also for using the repository. Gradually, once that thing stabilizes, we would like to open it to the public. So that will really help in, helping in, and also we are also in process of, we have a threat exchange that the CERT-In has established, and that to take it to the national level, National Threat Exchange. So these are some initiatives that are happening to see that we have an infrastructure for protecting the critical infrastructure, and that would help the data center business also. And the other one is regarding the skill sets, which Dr. Verma had also talked about, that specific skill sets are required. Of course, she also mentioned that automation is important, especially in cybersecurity. The amount of data that's to be handled and the analysis that's to be done of the incidents that happen, definitely AI and ML is required to be used for that. But we require skill sets, especially in that area, and that's been recognized, and NCIPC has been targeted and saddled with the responsibility, and they're working with QCI to come up with a framework for that, and a certification framework both for individuals and for certifying agencies and for educational institutes and the training institutions, certifying of training institutes. They'll come up with that shortly, so that we'll have that framework also, and that will help the having the requisite manpower for the data centers also, and certification of that, and recognized certification for people who will be manning data centers. So thank you very much. And I think this is a good initiative that's been taken by Mr. Shashi and his organization. And I thank all the other co-panelists that are here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Fantastic addressing and giving the detail. Thank you so much, sir. Now we move to the panel discussion, which will be shared by Harnath Babu, the CIO of KPMG. Narendranath sir, I hope you can stay back for some time to take one or two questions.
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah. So I welcome our moderator, Mr. Harnath Babu, who is the CIO for KPMG, more than 20 years of experience, worked in various organizations before joining to KPMG. He was Cultural Alliance, Daiichi Life, Aviva. Now presently he is in the KPMG. Harnath, you have all the panelists, CVs and everything with you. The only change is Golak has to move out because the minister has called for a meeting. So we have Dr. Chinmay Hegde, who is a consultant and the CEO of the Astricos consultancy firm, one of the IT consulting firm, and a cybersecurity and a smart cities and data center expert. He is joining with us in this session. And as Narendranath sir said, that he is also going to be there in the panel for some time. Over to you, Harnath.
Sure. Thank you, Shashi, and congratulations for another another year of successful event on data center transformation. So I would want to just thank Neeta ma'am, Rajatji, and Narendraji for sharing all the views, and I couldn't really help taking a note of a couple of points, and really felt very interesting some of these points, right? So technology is obviously changing the whole, the current industry. It's changing the way we live and breathe, right? I mean, that everything is getting changed, and certainly a lot of initiatives are being taken by the government, and we are seeing how citizens are getting benefited because of these initiatives, right? Consumptions of technology continue to change, and cloud is democratizing the tech and applications. Neeta ma'am clearly mentioned that. There's been an exponential growth of data center infrastructure because of the data, and data continues to be an important asset. And what Narendraji said, AI and ML will evolve with data, right? And we will continue to see skill and automation and data privacy and security as well as the key challenges for the future. So I think one thing which has changed in last 18 months, especially after COVID coming in, was the very landscape of business has changed. We have entered into the next phase of digital transformation. it is accelerating at a much faster pace. And what we have understood is, technology and technology infrastructure has been the savior of the day. I mean, we couldn't have been able to successfully run businesses in the last 18 months if the technology infrastructure was not there in place. And we have also seen many of the organizations have really rushed to the hyperscalers, rushed to the cloud to make sure that they are continuing to survive during the pandemic. And according to one of the predictions by Gartner, by end of 2021, the data center infrastructure industry will be almost $200 billion. So, which means that we are looking at a massive growth in terms of data center infrastructure and the way enterprises and governments will continue to use technology infra. So, Sumit, a quick question for you. What are the changes in the data center strategy that we are seeing from an enterprise perspective, considering the transformation demands that we have seen in the last 18 months, or maybe before that?
So, what we are seeing consistently, that companies in the early days of the pandemic, for example, you started mentioning that everybody rushed to do it. The ones that really made it successful were the ones who already had 70-80% of their working already on the cloud. So they didn't have to do anything. They just basically created the environment for everybody to succeed. Subsequently, we have seen a lot of demand from the companies to cloudify their applications. A lot of these are not. Inherently, the applications that people have been using were not hybrid or not even... it was not possible for them to do. So a lot of development work I have seen getting outsourced to people to essentially enable this movement from on-prem situation to moving it to the cloud. And I think that that movement has picked up. I would say that there is a lot of work that is still happening, and all the tenders that we are seeing from companies, all the requests that are coming, they are now very amenable to things on the cloud. They are okay to host on an Amazon. They are okay to host on a Azure, and they are moving quite actively to say that how do we make it hybrid? How can I have authentication in one place? How can I have the database in another place? Can I do both part of my database in Amazon, part of my database in Azure? Can both of them work? Very complex set of conversations are happening now in the enterprise space. And these are, it's interesting conversations because, when we were in the telecom industry, Sunil, we were there looking at people, everything had to be in one place. If you went to the cloud, you went to the internet data centers, and that's where everything is going to be. But now we have realized, as technology has moved, that you can actually be in 3 data centers and still be able to achieve the same resiliency that you are expecting out of the systems that you have if they were already in your control. The second thing that has happened is the technology is moving so fast and primarily driven by a lot of these hyperscalers, actually, that they are building their own hardware, they are building their entire management systems, and so they have a unique proposition, which I think people like Sunil, they are also now rushing towards creating, is saying that can I provide a full management setup to the customer so that they don't even feel that they are in a cloud or they are in a data center. It will almost look like they're in their own on-prem infrastructure. I think those are the kinds of movements that I'm seeing in the enterprise space. Government space is a slightly different conversation, though, and we are having those as well as part of the smart cities projects. But at a central government level, I have seen a massive movement to the cloud from Amazon, from Azure, and most of these guys have taken over the basic infrastructure from the. And I would say, why don't we have NIC? It's just difficult to engage and get a quick environment going. I think that is the movement that needs to happen from a government space, that if a department wants to engage, can they go to a website and click a button and put in a card and they're good to go? That doesn't happen yet. So we have seen that movement happening more towards the hyperscalers who are making that happen. They go to an outsourced party, they tell the outsourced party, get me so much of space, and bang, you've got an oversized. I mean, I'm working on a project in which I would have done with 2 servers. There are 13 servers on that project. I said, who told you to do 13 servers? Amazon said it. I said, why did Amazon tell you to do 13 servers? It's their infrastructure. So I'm seeing a lot of overcapacity being deployed also because people don't know. That is another thing that is an opportunity for consultants, opportunity for people to go in and advise them how to optimize the infrastructure that is there in the various data centers, how to share the load in various places. I don't know whether I've very specifically answered your question, Arnath, but I think what I'm seeing is the conversation is very mature. The conversation is quite complex, and that's good. That's good for the industry. That's good for all of us to think about how to take this and make it even more easy to use for the enterprises and the governments and everybody who's trying to digitize at a hyper speed right now. Everybody, in fact, the smallest item in the government today or in the enterprise today is getting digitized at no paper, no, everybody should be working off a mobile. I mean, we build all applications in Gaia as mobile only, almost like everybody is mobile. Everything should be available so that they don't even need to go to a desktop to do what they are doing. And we are working with railways, airports, cities, and we see this adoption at the lowest level of the user base quite healthy. We have been successful in making applications run for 3-4 years at a type of people using it, and we were surprised. It doesn't happen in enterprises also.
Sure. Thanks, Amit. And I think one thing which is coming out very clearly is there's a push towards cloudification of the applications, and multi-cloud strategy continues to, overwhelm enterprises. And again, government still has to work in that space, especially on the agile way of resource allocation, and there is a need to do optimization of cloud consumption. And I'll come to that point a little later in the discussion. But quickly, Somnesh, heading towards you. How government is approaching the whole idea of on-premise versus cloud, right, when it comes to driving digital initiatives? Any thoughts around hybrid data center that are being considered by government?
See, already I think Nita Madam and Narendra Sir has elaborated all the things, the demand of the data center. Initially, we were having data center, only the PSU or the government centric. And of course, the NIC is having a big cloud called the Meghraj. So, the kind of, the technology is advancing, and the platform like Aadhaar, so lots of things will happen in the near future. Many schemes, are coming on the digital platform, because government is committed to make $1 trillion digital economy, and basically we are moving towards the cashless, presence-less, paperless system. So if everything is data driven, so of course we require servers where we have to store the data. But I would like to add here, that it's of course the public and the private participation or hybrid sort of thing, because from the Aadhaar point of view, we have now allowed all the NBFCs, for example, so they can also use this Aadhaar digitally KYC, and further all the SEBI regulated entry and mutual fund, etc. they are going to use. So many more entities are now coming. So they are the private entities, not so earlier people are thinking that maybe the government services, that the digital data is coming only from the government, but there's lots of things are happening in the private domain also. So maybe as on did, they sometimes small organizations are having the data in their local server sort of thing, but everyone is aware, or one should be, that now already the privacy bill, data protection bill has been introduced, and we are moving towards the consent driven architecture, and security and the privacy are of the paramount importance. So we require the data centers, state-of-the-art data centers, where one can give the assurance that yes, I'm providing service to you, and your all the information and data has been kept secure, no one can access. That kind of assurance is required, because in future any service that we are going, whether in the public domain or through the public sector or government or the private. So the idea is that the data center demand is increasing, and only these two things, that security and privacy, in the whatever the design the people are doing, or architecture, the solution architecture, so that they have to inbuilt, and accordingly whatever new data center are coming, they are offering these services. So there's a huge demand. So maybe everything will come from silos to the server side, because and everyone wants a quick service.
Sure. Thanks, Somnesh. I think you made a very clear point that in the digital economy, it's going to be all data driven, and certainly there's a need of public-private integration. And the whole idea of consent-driven architecture is going to be driving the way we will, not only store data, but also provide services to, different parties who are going to be consuming this data. So, Narendraji, I know I'm bringing you back again, but just to extend the point on data protection, which is in consideration, what is the overall trend that you're seeing? Are you seeing that there is an awareness amongst the enterprises as well as entities which are going to be using this data? Like GDPR came in, there was a whole lot of shift that happened, from a data privacy perspective. Are we seeing a similar kind of a change that's going to happen in the country, or you think it's going to be slightly lenient? I don't know. I'm just asking a question. So
I think, you raised the point of GDPR and a shift that had happened after that. So you would find that the shift had happened because there were some regulations and there were some associated penalties that are, that were visualized in that. And that's when, people woke up, because there was a business interest that was built into the whole concept of GDPR. And, people reached out to get themselves educated. It's not that they were sitting quiet, but they reached out, and got themselves educated, and people came, and we had workshops going along to understand exactly what is required to be done by the organizations to ensure that they comply with the GDPR regulations. So, many a time when people look at their own businesses and the way they handle data, they would look at their own business continuity interests and the cost benefit analysis of whatever they do. So even in India, it's important, and it's a normal human tendency. So it's important that we come up with some regulations, and there's a clarity in regulation. I think it's also important responsibility to the government to see that once we get the regulations in place, we bring clarity of those regulations to the, all the enterprises, and exactly what they're supposed to do to see that they comply with those regulations. So I think that is something that would happen. And it's a consultative process. You'll find that most of the things that we do in a consultative process. So that is something that we'll have to go down that road before they start complying with that. But many of the organizations which are, cross-border functioning and they've already complied to GDPR, they would be in a better position to, immediately comply to the incremental changes that they would see when the Indian regulations come in. Because most of the regulations across the world would be similar. There might be minor modifications from here and there. But because that education has already happened within the enterprises, they would be in a better position to handle it. Purely organizations with a domestic and which don't have international exposure, and we have not gone through this road, they would have it a challenge to go through that. But I think we'll travel that road and we'll do it well.
Sure. Thank you, sir. So, in fact, it's an interesting thing that you mentioned. I think people will see definitely their interest. I mean, if they have to pay penalties, obviously they'll be complying to the regulations, and it's important for the government to have clarifications. I think it's important to bring the clarity in the way regulations are built. So, slightly switching the gear, Sunil, coming to you. Considering the demands that we are seeing, and you've heard the panelists, right, in terms of how they are looking at, the changing trends, and you also heard the earlier address, Narendraji addressed and ma'am also addressed. What is the strategy that as a data center service provider that you are thinking, to meet these requirements? And this is very fast changing, right? And again, I know there's a lot of pressure coming onto you, but what is the strategy that you're looking at, in building a very robust data center infrastructure?
Couple of things. First, straight, simple, scale. As you said, and I think ma'am mentioned, Narendraji mentioned, the industry, because of the latent pent-up demand, and also for what is to come up in the next 7 to 10 years, the various driving factors we all know, it will go crazy. Whether it goes 3 times bigger or 10 times bigger, we all can make our guesses and our guesstimates, but fundamentally it will go much, much bigger. As an industry, till about 5 years back, we were too small. Whatever has happened actually has happened in the last 5 years. It still has, we have come a long way, but we have much, much longer way to go. And possibly my estimate is we have to become at least 10 times compared to what the capacity we have. So first is brute scale. Instead of talking about a 6 megawatt data center with 1,000 racks, we start talking about 25, 30 megawatt data center with some, let's say 5,000 racks. Fundamentally, we start talking about campuses. Because what I have seen in the last 5 years, once the hyperscaler, which himself is using a data center underlying, if they grow, they have to expand in the same site to keep on delivering scale to their customers. If they have to keep on moving from one building in one location to other building, it is going to be crazy from a network connectivity, logistics, and overall IT spend point of view. So what we have seen the trend in India now is that how do we bring scale, we bring campuses and bring the ecosystem that you also start having your own power distribution licenses, you start having 220 kV lines coming into this, you start bringing multiple fiber paths into this, and basically take care of the ecosystem, including stay facility for employees. The way you used to develop NTPC or a SAIL would do in the past. Data center ecosystem has to come in from a scale point of view. That is one part. Second part is what I think we as industry has learned in the 5 years, again, a huge focus on quality, right? Huge focus on availability. The type of businesses which are running in data centers now, we can see if a 1 minute downtime happens, we all face something on WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever, our entire personal life and professional life goes for a toss. That is everything is happening in data center. So data center cannot go down come what may, whether it is a natural disaster or man-made disaster. So that is where that concept of what like we tried to do with that tier 4 type of design and construction was a fault tolerant implementation. Come what may, any failure in the data center, any single failure in data center, whether it happens on your UPS or a chiller or a AHU unit or a cable, or for that matter, a small fire in the building should keep on running as if nothing has happened. The building should run in auto, even if there's no person in the building. That is the second type of scale, I would say scale of quality, which the industry will have to adopt. And I think we are directly working in that direction. The industry is working in that direction. The third part, which I think ma'am also mentioned, I think Narendraji also mentioned, was data center cannot be just a co-location data center. That is good for a hyperscale cloud operator because they will bring the entire value layer into the data center of hardware, software, and the hyperscale layer and the connectivity layer. They will do all that themselves because they in turn are serving their cloud to the customers. But when you talk to enterprises, the vast array of large, medium, small enterprises, they are not actually bothered about space from a data center. They are saying, give me everything end to end. Give me the end application, give me my end business use case. And for that, whatever it takes, whether it is a software level service or a platform level service or a infrastructure level cloud or a hardware or a combination of hybrid and private and public, including something running on Amazon, something on Azure, and something in your data center. The service provider will have to go beyond an infrastructure provider to a solution provider, incorporating all these elements into the solution. So the next part is data centers. Some of them are doing it who are original players, but how we increase the value chain of the data center from co-location up to the cloud layer and the services layer to the customer, make it self-service. That will be another very, very important aspect. Fourth aspect I can see, Harnath, is in terms of the data center industry worldwide is 2-3% consumer of the worldwide energy. It is expected to go up to 7%. These things have started catching up in mature industries like Singapore, where there's a ban on making new data centers for next 2 years till 2023, simply because of the impact on environment, right? These things are not coming in India because we are still in a growth phase. We are still catching up, but soon those discussions, those narratives will start forming up. that how do you control the data centers consuming so much of power? So how do they actually use greener power, solar power, wind power, and the elements, which is one of the industry demands in the the data center policy which METI is making, or the state policy which are coming up. How do you enable the industry to have a very free, open access to power sources and have possibly some sort of incentivization for the data center to adopt greener energy? And the last part, Harnath, is yes, today we are all into centralization, that all the content will come into hyperscale data center, everything will run there. As we have got 5G approaching, as we have IoT use cases approaching and AI ML use cases approaching, they all will be happening at the edges. There will be no time of milliseconds left for a signal to come into a center data and go back to a device. You cannot have a connected car running where the signal has to come to a center data in Mumbai and then again signal going to a car, right? It has to happen in the edges. That is where we will gradually see in the next 5 years, while there will be a big development of hyperscale data center in key areas where you have got all the ecosystem, be it Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, wherever. But we'll also see small edge data centers popping up in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, so that we have optimization of bandwidth and also a fast real-time experience to whether it is an IoT device or whether it is a consumer consuming a IoT or OTT content. So these are some of the things which I think we as the industry feel are the trend, and this is where we as the industry need to focus on for the future.
Sure. Thank you, Sunil. And in fact, it's an interesting point that you mentioned that the growth is going to be almost 10 times, and root scale is the way to go. One important point that you did raise about quality and availability of services. I think at the end of the day, it's a service that is being provided to any enterprise or any customer who's actually accessing the data or any other application, right? And seeing from a consumer mindset, let's say, or a customer mindset, it's not about nuts and bolts, right? It's all about services. I think the whole mindset shift has happened because of the cloud consumption and the way cloud is being offering those services. So and it's an interesting point that you brought out was on the power. I think if you actually see the global data center consumption of power is almost 200 terawatts of power every year that it consumes, and data centers are more interconnected as we speak, right? And we're talking about almost 17 zettabytes of data that is going to be generated by 2025, right? And managing this kind of data and processing this kind of data will require a lot of power and space and compute, especially, and storage as well, right? So, Sumit, quickly coming to you, maybe pick up your thoughts on, how important is it now to consider the sustainability agenda for data centers? And Sunil did mention about it briefly, but I think you are working on smart cities. But what do you think should be the whole agenda of sustainability, especially coming to data center infrastructure?
So, two things are primarily driving the consumption of energy. One is the actual use by the data center compute infrastructure. The second one is the cooling infrastructure. I think that both of these are consuming most of the energy that is being there, and there is a huge amount of research that is going on as how to design these data centers in the first place to cut down the consumption on one side, and as ma'am mentioned in the earlier days, keep it in the earlier session, of where do you locate these such that you actually start consuming less energy because of temperature, because of all the other environmental conditions. Use nature to cool down, use nature to heat up as required, as they say. And also renewable energy sources are not everywhere in the country, and transporting energy also costs a lot of energy, right? So we need to be closer to the source of consumption. So we need to look at the sourcing. And if you look at sustainability, it has got not only these two, but also how many people are being required, how much of automation are you being able to do in the data center such that you are able to reduce the consumption. Now, theoretically, a lot of it is doable today. Practically, as well as from a business case standpoint, is it worthwhile today to invest so it's whenever you talk about sustainability, you always come down to the conversation that yes, it is possible. It was possible probably 5 years ago, but the business case was not valid at that time, and business case is now slowly coming to a point where it is getting valid. It is commercially viable to put a solution which reduces energy while consuming less. All of those things are being thought through now. Mainly, a lot of research again coming out from the hyperscaler data center guys, the Amazons of the world, and I know people who have been working in those centers. Absolutely hands-free black boxes which can be deployed, as Sunil said, on the edge. In an intersection, you can have a fully functioning small data center which is remotely controlled, so that it will look like part of a larger cloud infrastructure that you've got. So those kinds of technologies are being thought through today, which is going to have an impact on the sustainability and also make it business case viable. It is cheaper. Business case viable, what I mean is it's cheaper to implement per kilowatt hour consumed in the data center. So one of the things that we can do almost instantaneously is monitor the consumptions and bring down the servers which are not running, fire it up only when required, and just-in-time things that can be done almost immediately. Solar powering has already been done in almost 100% of all data centers. Have got some capacity that they are putting up there, but it is not enough, obviously, to power the main compute. It will definitely be used to enhance and also augment, I would say, not the main source. You just can't have it that way. The use of generator sets actually is also a very negative impact on the environment, and so if we are putting data centers where there is frequent power cuts, where generator sets will come into thing, we are actually impacting the environment a lot more than we should. Safer and cleaner and cheaper ways are there to do it right now. So that's what I would say, that there is a huge conversation that we need to start now. Probably becomes viable in the next 2 to 3, 4 years. As Sunil said, right now people are not talking about it, just build. But when I look at the RFPs coming out from the newer ones who have just contracted, the Yonders of the world, the digital realities of the world, who are just going to invest billions of dollars in this market, all of them are thinking through these concepts in a very big way. Gaia, we are working very closely with a company which is deep into data center builds called SEW. We are having a joint go-to-market right now in automating a lot of these functions, both energy, power, water, cooling. All of these technologies today, which were earlier not digitally enabled, they were more part of the brick and mortar part of the data center, now is getting digitally enabled to create a fully automated and smart MEP, as you would call it. The MEP was there before, now it is becoming smart MEP to have that sustainability as a big offering from these players. Yeah.
Sure, Sumit. So I think point is very clear that the business case is still evolving. I mean, sustainability, while it's being talked about, it's still is being still under deliberation, and certainly it's important for data center service providers to have alternate source of power while they continue to monitor the consumption. And tech, to your point, is really changing this game, especially the way sustainability initiatives can be implemented. So any thoughts on this, Chinmay, on sustainability agenda for data centers?
Yeah, absolutely, Harnath. Sustainability aspect for India is different from what is it for globe, because in India we are forced to retrofit a lot of things. Because we cannot we by nature we act frugal, right? So, and we have to conserve our existing investments. So when we come to the sustainability aspect, the retrofitment aspect, important aspect is to have the power conservation, not just only in new builds, but which are already there, already existing infrastructures. Accept it or not, data centers have become a new generation infrastructures. So maintaining the sustainability, in fact, in the operation comes into the picture, such as already existing data centers have to, upgrade their operational, the way they operate, especially something of the sort of, if the energy conservation in the cooling of existing data centers is to the tune of something like, the studies say that 25% to 33% of the total power capacity of the data center goes in cooling. So when it goes in cooling, right? So it's quite important that how do we conserve whatever possible out of that. At least, 5% is a good save amongst that, right? Out of that. So it is important to use something like, the new thing that is coming in, like a kind of a unified management of IT and OT, converging IT and OT, because we spoke this in the smart cities domain for last half a decade or so. Similarly, data centers, operation, converging IT and OT, right? Both come into the picture, because OT, which is a facilities segment, IT is the revenue earning segment, right? So IT grabs more attention than the OT part, which is actually the cost part, right? So I hope Sunil would agree that very well, because, so that's the invisible devil overall. So important aspect is to save the, cost in that, and also achieve the sustainability there, because any infrastructure, if it has to be sustainable, it has to go for long, right? So, and important is operational excellence. So how can you improve the operation by means of the AI, machine learning, right? So artificial, especially all these data intelligence, right? So that can help you. More than doing new investments, first focus on, improving the operations in the current operational framework, save something, and then improve your capacity, because you cannot buy more and more power capacity. Okay, you have 100 megawatt data center, you cannot go ahead, okay, but because my customers are increasing, I need to scale it up by another 25 megawatts. No, that's not the first step. The first step is, okay, out of this 100 megawatt, how much can I conserve and recater, right? So that is like one side you will save, another side you will earn more, right? So this applies, because it also not only is just to the cost part, it is now a biggest of the biggest sustainability impact on the globe, right? It is part of, data centers are part of United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. It's one of the top 5 power guzzlers or top 6 power guzzlers on the globe. And carbon emission, all these aspects are actually impacting the infrastructure. So important aspect is to first conserve and then increase the capacity. That will make it more sustainable.
Sure. Thanks, Chinmay. And I think interesting point that you brought out was Indians will continue to be frugal in mindset, and they will continue to repurpose whatever is possible, right? And certainly that can hamper to a certain extent the sustainability agenda because of the use of old hardware or technology. But I think if the focus is there on sustainability, certainly this will really push the agenda. And I think what's important is to optimize as well as, continue to conserve. A quick, again, shifting the gears slightly, and Sunil, to your point earlier, if you look at the number of connected devices today, we are talking about almost 6.5 times as many connected devices as people on the earth, right? And there's been enormous growth in terms of the devices, right, which are IoT devices or connected devices, and many organizations are turning towards edge computing, because, and you did mention about the reason why they did that, right? So what are the specific trends that you're seeing on the edge computing models? And I would want to also direct this question to Samnesh as well, in terms of, are you seeing any similar trends in government as well? So maybe Sunil, we can start with, and maybe Samnesh can add on in terms of a government perspective.
Yeah. Anant, as of now, I can clearly see it from a purely that who is coming to me for that type of an infrastructure. It is essentially the same hyperscalers, the same guys who are consuming most of your hyperscale data center, the same guys, because they in turn may be serving their end customers who need the edge computing for their applications. So it is hyperscalers, it is content operators, it is internet exchanges, people like DECX or Nixie or Extreme IX. These are the people who are asking for that. One is just to take my content, caching, so that the local community can be served right locally, and they don't need to spend on the backhaul of the NLD to take all the content to the main data center. So one is clearly they're coming in. Second, what I can see is that when people are doing, let's say, POC or some AI use case in my data center, the next question is that in case this this idea becomes successful, I will have to deploy it on edges. So can you give me the infrastructure on the edges? That is the second thing I can clearly see, because they are coupling it also with as and when 5G is available. A combination of a microsecond speed with the AI engine working right on the edge, delivering some real-time experience, to a device or the sensor is something which everybody is working on. So that is the second use case coming in. The third use case, which is again, I would say is very traditional, is which is very unique, is that in every city, what I found out when I started doing the research of this edge and making a business case, in every small city, you will find on average 50 small local internet service providers, right? I mean, it's a crazy number. In every small city, you'll have almost 50 internet service providers who are serving their mohalla or a colony or some part of that city. Each one of them right now is forced to buy bandwidth at a very, very high rate, because they are all doing it individually. They are not able to aggregate, in a city level, maybe also have the peering exchanges of the city level and the content also at the city level. So they all are like bleeding. They have to give it a very, very competitive rate to the end customer, but they still have to bleed because they're buying it very, 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 very at a very costly price. Once the edge data center comes in, along with edge, not only that rack capacity and everything comes in, you also bring connectivity there. You bring the national backhaul there. You bring the internet exchanges there. You bring the content of a Amazon or Google or YouTube and everything there. So one is that they are able to consume a lot of content right locally. So you're not going to backhaul. The internet reduces by default. Second is, as a bulk operator, as an edge data center, I also bring a huge bandwidth, transit bandwidth also there, right there itself. And I also bring the peering exchanges there. So I would say three things again to recap that. One is content operators to take their content to edges. Second is IoT, AI, ML use case implementers who want the things, to be deployed on the edges. And third is the local ISPs who will be in need to take the content right locally and reduce their bandwidth back home.
Sure. Thanks, Sunil. Sandesh, any thoughts on?
Yeah. See. Already the proliferation of the last mile in terms of the consumption. Already everyone has mentioned about the IoT, and in next maybe 2 or 3 years we are going to see a lots of humongous data is going to be generated, and we have to take care of with respect to security and privacy and all secure transmission as well. But it's not only the data center will store the data in secure manner, but the transmission is of the utmost important in that scenario. So already the one BharatNet project is going on. It's at the fast pace, and very soon we are going to cover each and every village with the fiber connectivity, because it is the requirement. Otherwise, we can have a state of our data center, but it's no use, because if the 70% of the India lives in the rural area, so the demand will come from there. That is the huge demand is there for the consumption of data. And for example, from the government side, the digital platform of the Aadhaar, or the GEM Trinity, basically Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile, is being used by many government departments, not only central government, but the state government, for delivery of the services. And we are going to use the smart devices as an authenticator. For example, so every mobile or maybe any other device in future, or the face authentication along with the Aadhaar. So it is self-service mode. So everyone, the penetration of the smartphone is increasing. So we are going to enable, the last mile person, even look in the rural area, is going to consume the data. So we have to see that, whatever solution we are going to design, so maybe the service provider has to design solution, but the data center has to play a major role, because they have to guide them that, okay, you please design a solution that there should not be no latency, because the expectation is very, very high. As on date, Husor is using maybe we have seen the era of the 9.6 kbps of the internet, and now maybe 1 Mbps to 50 Mbps and 100 Mbps. But a slight glitch, we slightly get irritated why it's not the data is not coming. So the expectation is really has increased. So we have to take this also in account whenever we are going to. And I think Sunil already touched this, that the disruption of service we cannot tolerate. There is zero tolerance for that. Every time 24 hours one has to get the service, because now when everything is coming to the self-assisted mode with the devices as the authenticator, So everything is a paperless. So I think the robust architecture is required. Fundamentals, we should have a strong fundamentals, right? Maybe the technology can change. Maybe today is blockchain technology. In future, maybe the other technology will come. So that keep on changing. It's a game. It's to enhance the security. But the basic roadmap from the customer point of view and the last mile point of view at the data center, we have to think in detail and design the solution that fashion.
Sure. Thanks, Amnish. And very interesting point that at the end of the day, the service is more important and you need to reach the last mile. I think it's the whole effort of adopting Edge is obviously to make sure that you have a seamless last mile experience. And one last question that I have to the panelists, it's to everyone. I think we did hear about skills issues. We did hear about operations. We did hear about automation that is going to make sure that some of the sustainability agendas are driven. Are we seeing a major challenge with skill sets in comparison to the way we are growing the data center infrastructure? Are we finding the right kind of talent to manage all of this, or are we just growing the infra? Open to the panel.
I can talk, Harnath, briefly on the infrastructure level. I'm sure IT level, Sumit can cover in greater details. At the infrastructure level, at a leadership level, suddenly there's a big gap, right? So there were few operators in India, and there were people who were managing a data center facility project coming up, and later on the operations part of that. Suddenly, with so much of players coming in, which is good for the industry, good for the country, the leadership layer who understand the overall dynamics of how a data center is different from a regular commercial building and how to build it, how to conceive it, design it, engineer it, and build it, and then operate it. Suddenly, there's a huge dearth in the leadership space. Underlying, I don't think there is a talent issue, because underlying, if you see in data center, while on the top you have digitalization and IT, but below it is electrical, mechanical, civil, and instrumental, right? These are the skill sets which are available in bulk in traditional mechanical process industries as well. So what the industry is doing, when you are not able to find it within, you're also now reaching out to these parallel industries also and getting people and obviously reskilling them, which is not very difficult. Air conditioning is there in a much larger way. Let's say in airport and railway industry, maybe much bigger than compared to what is in data center. So you can draw upon those people. It's only a matter of reskilling them. And but yes, at a leadership level, we can clearly see a big gap right now.
Yeah, I would like to add here, what Sunil has pointed out, maybe from the infra point of view, as such, there is no breadth of the skill set, it's available. But, we can't treat only the data center in silo, because we have to give the 360 degree, So data center will work that when the entire ecosystem will work together. And, the last 2 years, because of the pandemic, the persons or skill set that, there's a supply and demand issue, the person who are designing the system, basically architecting the system. Yes. So we are the short of those type of good, the solution architects. So maybe we have to work in that area also. Then, it will catch up. So here we have to move more. Maybe, but with respect to infra, I'm totally in agreement with the Sunil. So as far as the creation of the data center or the infra issue, as such, there is no skill set.
I think what has happened, if I were to jump in from an IT perspective, the architects that you were talking about, Sumesh, is their value has gone up. Their cost has gone up.
Yes.
They're available.
Yeah.
Except that they become unaffordable.
Right.
Yeah, you can say, you put it like this, unaffordable. So basically supply demand ratio. Yeah. So because supply is less and demand is more for the goods. So maybe we require more and more talent. So reduce the cost of the.
Absolutely. And if I look at government procurement, and then I'll look at private sector also, government procurement is still going, madam is not there, but we are still doing Nixie rates. Oh, Nixie rates mein to my driver comes, not an IT support person. So obviously soon drivers are becoming IT support people. IT support people are getting 2 months of training and becoming architects, and Sumesh will go and hire them as architects. But the problem is that they are not good architects. What is available for us to use at those rates are architects, but they're not good designers who are not good they're available. We can show credentials, and it's happening across the industry. And we are not just getting good output. We are, there is a gap between what we are producing over here for Indian market, for Indian consumption, to what the same team at a different price point, at a different level of assurance is producing for an overseas client or with an overseas cost bracket. That's something that we are systematically seeing across the board. You go to a government website and you'll go to a commercial website and you'll see the difference between how it is being done. And that's clearly got to do with the skill set of the people who are behind these projects. Now coming to private sector also has seen massive changes in salary structures of the people we are talking about in the technology industry today. We give offers to somebody, within a week they have 3 more offers which is double the amount you gave, and then you just can't compete in this market in this way. So you then pick up the driver who has become an architect and give him more money. So essentially we are seeing this in the corporate world also, that we can't, this is a democracy and it is a capitalist society. You can't all collectively decide, I won't give salary hikes. It will happen. So that is the shortage, that there is people available at a different price point, and that price point, there is a huge demand for people at that price point also, because the world is moving to digitization at a pace, and we are the biggest factory. You can't help it but that market becoming unaffordable for the domestic consumption completely. So that's the thing. And the other thing that we need to look at is training them. Schools training people coming out, engineers coming out of today are by and large not useful for the next 1 year when you put them on the job. They will need to be trained, then they will need to be benched with other people to get them. So we are probably not teaching enough skills along the way. In fact, college degrees are causing more problems in our industry. If people who don't have college degrees, who are just doing IT, are probably getting more qualified. So essentially, we need to relook at how we are training people in this industry. And do we really need somebody who can do advanced calculus to write the code that we require, who can design a good page and can manage a good infrastructure, can monitor servers and cooling and heating and other things? So you basically look at the type of education we are giving, and maybe there is a time for us to redesign the curriculum to prepare people for our industry differently. We are still taking the basic engineers and the electrical engineers, and we are trying to stuff them into this new industry which is coming up. Can we redesign a curriculum? I work globally with multiple colleges, and I'm seeing that conversation happening there also. And I'm saying the same thing over there also. Can we redesign the curriculum to make more better trained people to join our industry?
Absolutely. So quickly to jump into the same point that Sumit was raising, right? So industry academia cooperation, right? So government industry academia cooperation. That's quite important, not just only in data center domain, all the emerging technologies at this moment, maybe smart cities, maybe anything of that sort, right? Cybersecurity and all these areas which demand a capacity building. That's the capacity building framework is quite important. Of course, when I say about it, it's not just only about IT or computer science related topics in the engineering colleges or the science streams. It's more of one is about the entrepreneurship or the leadership building. Also, other MEP, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing part of the data centers domain, right? Where it's quite important that from the conventional mindset, the students have to start thinking about the emerging mindset, which is, the future technologies. So quite important is to reskill, upskill, the resources and build the entire capacity building framework. Also, the administration requires it, like maybe it's a crash course or something of that sort, right? So administration, the infrastructure administrators, unless and until they do this, they maintain that if they have to operate, they have to be aware of that. So creating the awareness in the short courses or such kind of things would help the entire ecosystem a lot. That's what is my opinion about it.
Sure. Thank you, gentlemen. I know we are already on top of the hour, and I think we've exceeded the time. But the discussion has been very interesting and a lot of insights. I wish we had more time because there's more to discuss, and the topic is not small. But I'm hoping that the audience had good time listening to all of you and your experience. Thank you so much for being part of the panel.
You.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Harnath. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shashi.
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you, Chinmay. Thank you, Sunil. Thank you, Sumnesh Joshi. After a long time, he joined. I hope everything is fine in Mumbai.
Yeah, fine.
Take care.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thanks.
Sumit will continue to stay here because he is to moderate the next session. Thank you, Harnath. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. See you. Thanks. Bye.
So now we move to the next session. Ranjit.